All right, how's it going? Welcome to episode 16 of the Next Man Up podcast. I'm here with just Richard today. What's up, Rich?
Whoop, whoop. Nothing much, dude. Just got done eating some salmon for dinner.
Nice, dude. Salmon's really good.
Yeah, it
It'd
was
probably go
delicious.
well with that keg that I owe you. For those of you that watched the last podcast, I was
Yeah.
not in attendance. It was not because I was dodging Rich. I
Mm,
know that the Heat got rolled. I'm shocked by that. But anyway, I do owe Rich a keg of beer. Adam and I are going to split that because I believe he was in on that bet too.
yeah.
Once we all get on camera again, we'll probably talk more
Uh,
details about that. But anyway, on to actual sports news that doesn't involve side bets that we have. Uh, Rich, I know you're not a huge NBA guy, but I'm literally watching the Atlanta Hawks Philadelphia 76ers game. Didn't even know they were going to announce this soon, but they announced Nikola Jokic is the MVP today in the NBA. So pretty cool. You got any thoughts on that? The nominees came down to Jokic, Steph Curry, who didn't even make the playoffs, and then Joel Embiid, who's the starting center on the Sixers, who are playing right now, whose team came in first place in the East. So what did you think? Do you think it went to the right guy or someone who wasn't even nominated should
I
have deserved
mean,
it, or what?
I think Joe Embiid should have actually gotten it. Like you already said, I'm not the biggest basketball guy, but I do like defense better than like offense in general. And I think he's been, you know, the shutdown like defender. He's scoring points. I always hear like other people kind of like rag on him about like his shooting, that it's not like the greatest, but he's also a center. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's also like Shaq. He sucks at shooting. He can't like shoot a free throw to save his life. And
That's
you're
the
gonna
other
sit there
interesting stat.
like,
Actually, a couple of interesting stats about this that you just made me think of. So sorry for cutting you off. But speaking
nah,
of Shaq, Jokic is the first center to win MVP since Shaq back in 2000. So it's been over 20 years since somebody has won an MVP as a center. So either way, I agree. I think it should have came down to one of those two guys. But I think that's really cool to see. That being said, Jokic is the first second round pick to ever be an MVP. I think he was picked 44th overall, which would have put him like mid second round, whatever year he was drafted. So that's a pretty cool feat.
oh wow.
I would not have guessed that. I would have thought that there would have been at least one other person. I couldn't name who would be the lowest MVP off the top of my head, aside from Jokic, who he would have, surpassed for that. But
That is like
kind of a cool
such a
stat.
weird, that's such a weird stat though. Like
I don't
no
know. I
second
think it's a
round,
cool
no
stat.
second round players ever won MVP. That just shows on like how dominant like the top 10 players are in the NBA
Mm-hmm.
draft all the time. Like that is nuts to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you'll see some second round all stars and stuff sometimes, but yeah, as far as MVP candidates go, like, if they're not in the first 15, maybe 30 picks, like, yeah, I mean, like, you're not going to be that caliber of a player. But it's cool to see because I would love to see that. I know you guys always like it's always so funny when we talk about like the NFL and stuff. You guys are like, they're going to give up a third round pick. Like, are you kidding? That's so much value. But like in the NBA, it's not like that at all. Like, second round picks are still very low value. But I hope that this is a kind of an indicator of like things to come and that to change. I'd love to see the NBA draft get deeper. I'd love to see more of an international presence, more players, bigger rosters. Like, I think it's kind of cool for the game. But that being said, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from the perspective of other sports, it's pretty incredible. I don't know that you would see that in hockey, and definitely not in football, that there's only one second round pick ever to be MVP.
Like, I don't know, out of all the top like nominations, like I know Steph Curry's like very good and everything like that, but like
I didn't feel like he deserved to be
he
nominated, in my
I
opinion.
was I was gonna say, like, for him to be nominated, I feel like he got nominated more so for the last like 15, 20 games of the season and not the season as like a whole. Like he
I
just went
just,
off
yeah,
so hard at the end where it's just like, dude, if he
it just
like
doesn't. I just don't
and
get why. It just goes to show that, like, if you're a big name, you'll get applauded for doing like what you're supposed to do. Like, no offense, like Steph Curry has won a bunch of MVPs that he's deserved, but like giving him a weird off MVP in a year where his team missed the playoffs, and granted they were close, the play-in thing was kind of weird and whatever. But yeah, his team missed the playoffs. I mean, there's been guys who haven't even really been in the MVP race who have played better than Steph Curry played and like made the playoffs. So I just think it's weird that, you flash back just a few years ago where like Westbrook's team was like in sixth and he was like the first guy to average a triple double in like 50 years. And people were losing their minds like that's bogus. It shouldn't go to him. And then like you flash forward a few years and now you want to give MVP to a guy who like didn't even get his team to the playoffs. Like I get Klay Thompson was hurt and stuff, but like, he's won MVPs before. It's not like he's in danger of not winning an MVP for his stellar play his entire career. And like the media wanted to reward him. Like he's the first ever unanimous MVP. Like he's won, I think, 2 other MVPs. Like I just thought it was so bizarre and unfair to nominate him. I know there's not necessarily a trophy for being in those top 3 nominations, but I just didn't think he deserved it at all. I'm really happy to see Jokic get it because for a second there, yeah, I was kind of worried that, Steph Curry was going to get it. But, guys tear it up and put up, crazy numbers like that all the time. I don't really think Steph deserves to be rewarded for showing up and playing. Like, I think that shows the state of the NBA that, a lot of people, myself included, expected Steph Curry to just kind of coast, not try to make the playoffs because Klay was out again and just kind of try to stay healthy and just tank, lose a lot of games and, try to get another draft pick like they did the prior year. But it's just a really sad state of basketball where, showing up and playing to the level that you're capable of, you need to be rewarded for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Steph Curry. I think he's great, but he's playing at the level that he's supposed to be on a team where there's no one to really take away shots from him. So, yeah, I mean, guys do that all the time. Bradley Beal, had a crazy year last year. His team missed the playoffs. Russell Westbrook's probably done it a few times, playing out of his mind. Kobe Bryant for a few years there after the Shaq trade, like he had some statistical, seasons where he was just scoring at will and having these crazy individual performances, didn't win MVP. So yeah, I just thought it was totally ludicrous and I'm really happy to see Jokic get it. I think he deserved it. Joel Embiid, I would have been cool with too. But yeah, I think Jokic deserves it, especially with Jamal Murray going down and them. Speaking of, looking at the end of the season, because it is kind of important to look at the whole season, but the end of the season's important too. And yeah, Jokic really took over and they actually went on a winning streak, if I'm not mistaken, after Murray went down, which was really impressive because the West was super close and he just absolutely powered them and just further cemented it for me and pulled away from Embiid, who I thought he was neck and neck with all year.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see him get it.
The other thing too with him getting the MVP, this is also like I feel like he has like a ton of pressure now in round 2 to like win. Like they just lost game 1 to the Suns. Their next game is tomorrow. Like if they go down and like the Nuggets don't like advance here, like that's going to be kind of like, I don't know, to me, that's kind of like a small like issue. Like, yeah, you won the MVP. I mean, personally, I'm expecting the MVP to make a deep run in the playoffs. Maybe not make it all the way, but like.
I see what you're saying, but by the same token, it's a regular season award. And like I said, they're playing a man down. They're missing their second best player. I'm honestly impressed that they made it out of the first round. I think that's testament enough to, his value, Jokic's value. But by the same token, it's done. It's over. I wish they award this award a few weeks earlier because I don't think you should be able to see the playoffs at all for it to alter the media's impression of who the MVP is. It's strictly a regular season award. We've talked about on this podcast, like maybe expanding and doing like a playoff MVP award. That would be cool with me because sometimes the best player in the playoffs doesn't have the team to get them all the way to the finals. Luka Doncic comes to mind. He had a really great first round, but not enough of a team. And, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, no, I don't really have an issue with that. I don't think he has anything to prove. They made a deep run last year when they were fully healthy. They're down 1-0 to another really great team that's at full strength and has been far more healthy this year. So if they don't win this series, I don't think it takes anything away from Jokic's MVP season. I think they're not at full strength anyway, and I think the team that they're playing right now is comparable in talent to them anyway, even if they were at full strength. So I don't think it's much of a disappointment if he isn't able to get them by there. But speaking of, people that can't afford to go down or, maybe they should have went down. I don't know. I know we don't talk much about, other sports on this podcast outside of basketball, hockey and football, but just kind of reading the internet a bit today and, hearing about this Mayweather versus Logan Paul fight. These gimmicky Mayweather fights have been going on for a little while now, not taking anything away from him being an incredible boxer, but it seems like he's been much more of an incredible businessman of late. But this one is really peculiar. I guess basically what happened is it was an exhibition match between Logan Paul and Mayweather. So at least in the States, because it's an exhibition, there was no money lines. You couldn't gamble on it. It was purely an exhibition in nature. But I guess overseas, for some reason, I don't know if their gambling laws are just different or what, they were allowed to gamble on this fight. Mayweather was a minus 700. And allegedly, according to some video footage, I haven't watched it yet myself, but I mean, I definitely believe it. Mayweather knocked out Logan Paul, which would have warranted a win. But he caught him and kept him up to keep the fight going because technically they're in an exhibition. I guess the only way you can win a fight is by knockout. So a lot of people are starting to put their conspiracy theory hats on and say that that was a knockout, but Mayweather didn't want it to be a knockout. So he held the guy up, let the fight continue the full 8 rounds, and that it kind of altered the course of history and probably lost some people a lot of money overseas. You got any thoughts on that, Rich? I know I've just kind of browsed over that right as we were about to hop on the podcast, so not something I know a ton about, but
I definitely looked into this fight a little bit because, like, I don't know, I kind of like boxing. Like, I was definitely big with the Mayweather Pacquiao fight as well. But Mayweather, like, phenomenal boxer. He's very smart. He's not a knockout kind of guy. He's a guy who will he's very patient. He tires you out. Then he kind of comes in and just kind of beats you down kind of thing. So for Logan Paul to go the full 8 rounds, that in itself is pretty impressive because if you think about when he fought Conor McGregor, after like round 2 to 3, McGregor was just like winded. He like threw all his energy in the first 2 rounds and like he was just like done. So him making it all 8 rounds definitely a big thing for someone that has not been like boxing or fighting for very long.
And Floyd has gotten older since then. I think that's maybe important to note too. But great point. How old is Mayweather now? He's got to be in his mid-40s or something.
But Mayweather's more of like just like how you said earlier.
44 now. Yeah.
He's a huge money guy. He's not dumb. Logan Paul's picking up steam. Mayweather just like fought. I think I saw the stat that fight. I think Mayweather got like $100 million or something like that for this fight. Like he's just making bank off of these fights now.
I heard him say in an interview he's the best legal bank robber of all time. I think that's an accurate way of putting it. He knows he's breaking the bank. He basically told the media, like, I don't care what you write about me, but at the end of the day, I'm getting the last laugh. Like, we all know what I'm doing here and it's working. And in his defense, it was an exhibition. So it's like, I mean, I didn't know that, but if I were gambling on the fight, I would have researched it enough to know that that's an exhibition and looked up what the rules are and, how that could affect the money I'm putting down. Luckily, in the States, we weren't allowed to do that anyway, I guess, from what I've briefly read.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. Nice little like headline to kind of break up the hockey and, basketball playoff monotony, as we're kind of right in the middle of that now. And it's the only thing really going on sports wise other than, baseball that no one cares about at all. But speaking of another big story in sports outside of hockey and basketball, Rich, some NFL stuff going on, man. It's the off season, but we got some exciting news. Why don't you talk us through what just went down?
Julio Jones got traded to the Titans, which amazing move by the Titans all around. They did not give up a lot for Julio Jones. They gave up I believe it was like a second and I want to say like a 4th round pick, and they got like 6th round back in return, kind of thing for that. So it was, for that. So very good trade. The only issue is Julio Jones for the past like 4 or 5 seasons, I believe this stat was out there. He has not played a full 16 game season. He's only done that 3 or 4 times in his career. So he's constantly hurt for at least like a game or two, things like that, his whole career. But the biggest asset with that is for the Titans, that is such a huge like player to have because when you have AJ Brown that demands a double team, you want to keep somebody in the box because you have Henry as your running back. Now you also got Julio Jones too. You can't double team both receivers and give up those running lanes for Henry because they're going to run all over you. Or if you do keep that guy in the box, like AJ Brown and Julio Jones, like Julio could still pull away. He's still a deep threat. He's just a tall, physical guy. Like
End zone
it's
threat
gonna,
too. I
yeah,
think even if
it's
he's
gonna
not out
cause
there for every
issues.
snap, all you got to do is get in the red zone, and that's just one more guy that you have to worry about in the red zone because you have Henry that can run it in, you've got Brown that can, obviously a threat catching the ball, and then you put in one of the best receivers of all time too, even if he is older and a little injury hobbled. Those are still possessions where like you got to think they're converting a high percentage of those opportunities next year when they get in the red zone, just because they have all three of those options, not to mention, the rest of their team as well. That's probably going to eat also just from the amount of attention that those guys draw.
Yeah.
But that being said, man, you would know better than me, but I just looked it up quickly as you were talking.
Yeah.
Not that I disagree that it was a good trade.
They swapped second round picks, and Tennessee got a 4th round pick. No, Tennessee got a 6th round pick, and Atlanta got another 4th round pick. So they gave up a
I don't even
second and
care about
fourth.
all that. I agree with you
But,
that there's nothing to lose on this trade.
yeah.
But I just want to add this, that just ahead of the season, I'm looking up the rankings of, what a lot of teams project to be the best defenses in the league. Tennessee Titans projected 23rd of 32 teams. So definitely in that bottom half of
Yep.
the league comfortably
That's why they
defensively.
need the offensive power.
Do you think it matters that this offense got better? Do you think it's going to translate to wins for them if their defense is still so poor? Do you think they're done making moves? Do you think there'll be offseason trades? Maybe they can move out, a
I
receiver
mean,
that
they
Julio Jones will
definitely,
fill and try to flip that for some, defensive players to try to bolster that defense. I don't know.
no,
I'm not saying that there's anything they could really do to make a move to, make a jump to
no.
being an elite defense, but they could at least get a little better on that end. Do you
They,
think it's going to matter though? Like, do you think they're still going to be a good team this year?
I mean, they're still going to be a playoff team for sure. Julio Jones definitely makes that a um, high power offense, but you also need to think of it too as well. Like Tennessee has a couple guys on defense where like on defense necessarily don't have to like be the greatest defense, but you have to be able to stop some offenses every once in a while. Like if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they don't have a great defense, but their defense gets stops when needed for that offense to go down and get a lead or, kind of keep
And we
games
know as Bears fans
somewhat
how
close.
important it
Like
is. Yeah, and
to
it's important. I
score.
mean, well, right, exactly. Like we know as Bear fans how important it is to score. Even if you've got an elite defense and they're on the field constantly, they're too depleted. Their energy, is down. Their energy is too depleted for them to really make an impact. Sometimes a defense that's not as good, having an offense and playing with a cushion or a lead, or having some time to rest because you're not 3-and-outing every possession on offense, can make a average defense look a little better, or below average defense look a little better because they, at
They
least
get
they're well
rest.
rested when they're getting on the field,
Mhm.
So
No, that's a
that could help their defense maybe make a leap a little bit. But like I said, I think that's still going to be a huge issue for them. But like you said, man, they really didn't give up much. I think it's a no-brainer trade. A lot of people, I just kind of wanted to play devil's advocate, but I more so agree with you. A lot of people on the internet are saying, big deal, their defense still sucks, but if
no.
you
It's
were if you were
definitely a
offered
game
this trade,
changer.
why wouldn't you take it? I mean, sure, it doesn't address like maybe your biggest issue, but it still makes you even better at what you're already good at for
Yeah.
virtually nothing. So I don't know why you wouldn't do it.
The
So
other
great
thing
move. I
too,
agree. I think
like
it's a no-brainer.
the other thing about the trade is everyone was complaining about Julio Jones's contract and how large it is. Um, they are still saving money then picking up Corey Davis's 5th-year option. Corey Davis's 5th-year option was like 15.6 or 15.7 million dollars. Julio's contract for this year is 15 million flat. So they technically saved almost $1 million
That's a good point. I
by
didn't even realize
going
that.
with Julio Jones instead of keeping Corey Davis, where an older Julio Jones is still better than Corey Davis. Corey Davis is a good receiver. I believe he went to the Jets, so his career might be over there because the Jets have no idea what they're doing. So, like, good luck to
Yeah.
him out there. But
Might be throwing the ball to
yeah,
himself. Poor guy.
pretty much. I know. So,
I guess they did draft a quarterback, but they have
yeah.
still no offensive
Yeah, they
line.
drafted a quarterback 2 years ago, too. So that really
Yeah,
is saying
that's
a
what I'm
whole lot.
saying. Is it doesn't really matter until they get an offensive line. So, bummer
Yeah.
for him. But anyway, do you think this hurts Henry's game at all? Do you think he's gonna get less touches? You think
No,
it'll be
this
more of a
should,
throwing
to
offense, or
be,
it'll be even easier for him?
it
My
should
guess is he'll
amplify.
score more, but he might have less like total carries on the season. Obviously, like I think his stats are gonna look better in terms of like scoring. I still think like
Yeah.
they're gonna throw the ball down the field, probably move
Yeah.
down the field much quicker, and then just run
Well,
it in and keep it safe
the,
once they get
yeah.
close.
I mean, the other thing, though, too, is like when you think about like carries and workload for Henry, he's for the past 2 years, he's carried the ball like a gazillion times pretty much. Normally, most running backs, after doing that for like 1 year, start like breaking down. For him to do it like
Yeah,
2-3 years in a row, like
yeah, he's a
getting
beast.
Julio should probably help him a lot more because, like, yes, he's not getting as many touches, but now the touches that he does get, the defense should be more open because you're not going to have that like safety down in the box. Because if you have the safety down in the box, they should just be going over the top to AJ Brown or Julio Jones. Like
Yeah, true.
their tight ends also like not horrible either. So
That's true.
it's
What's his
like
name again? Smith, right? He was a pretty
I think
good
so. Yeah,
breakout
Juno
player.
Smith. Yeah,
Juno, yeah, that's a good point. That's another guy we didn't even talk about.
like
Another red zone threat, man. I mean, Jesus, you got to think this team would be one of the best like red zone converting teams in the league. Just looking at the options they have from close range, like, yeah, I can't imagine their offense not being one of the best in the league. And
yeah,
for virtually nothing, it seems like a good trade. But
yeah,
like we said, offense doesn't do everything for you, and that kind of brings us back over to basketball in a conversation I want to have. The Mavericks losing a heartbreaker game 7 against the Clippers, who they also lost to last year. Not being able to get over the hump. Still a young team, very great offensive team, but heavily reliant on Luka Doncic. Very reminiscent of Michael Jordan Bulls era, where he's handling the ball constantly, scoring, doing everything. The team's just not getting over the hump. Granted, they were making it a little further in the playoffs. But do you think something's wrong in Dallas? Porzingis has kind of expressed a little bit of frustration about Luka having too much time controlling the ball. Do you think that's sustainable? Do you think the Mavs have to, reassess? I don't think Carlisle will be out of a job, but do you think they're going to look to bring in another guy who can handle the ball this offseason? Or are they going to continue to play through Luka and live or die on his decision making and
I
condition?
mean, they shouldn't live or die on his like decision making. He's a young guy. He's a pure scorer. You need somebody to. He needs
I don't
help.
know. I think
He
he's a more
can't do
natural
it.
passer than scorer, but the
Yeah.
thing to note is
But
he's
how
amazing.
often is he like passing though? Like, what are his assists? Like, is
Oh,
he
really
passing the
high,
ball?
man. Like
Okay.
8 or 9 assists a game. Like the dude is a beast.
Yeah. Well, then
Yeah.
with like that, like him controlling the ball, if they are going to go that route, then like you need to get him shooters. You need to get him like
They
actual
have
like
they have good
help
shooters, but
kind of
I think
thing. So then if they have good shooters and the way that he's playing, then that means for the playoffs at game 7, then that's just more decision making by him. Like his decision making has to get better then. Because if you say he has shooters, you
mm,
have players around him, then
the
you might have like he might have to do something else then.
I'll play devil's advocate a bit because I kind of agree with Porzingis, and here's why. I think you can have excellent decision making. I think kicking the ball out to an open shooter is the right play, and it is excellent decision making. But you still have to make those shots, and I think teams that operate that way, I think we might. I don't know. I think that style of play is here to stay, but it can really cost you games. And you've got to find a kind of a second tier way to score the ball, because there are nights where Luka Doncic might have 0 turnovers, make all the right passes, and they just don't make 3-pointers. They could be wide open and they're just missing them. Like, teams do that. There was a year where the Rockets missed like 17 threes in a row and lost to the Warriors. Like, and those were good shots. They were the right shots, in the eyes of many coaches. But I think Porzingis' frustration is that, there's a difference between trusting your teammates to make a set shot and the difference between trusting your teammates to make a play. And Porzingis, he's been injured. He's changed his game a bit, always been kind of a stretch 4, stretch 5, shoot first, not very physical player. But he has a better post game than people give him credit for. And since when he was playing in New York before the injuries and stuff, when he was young, he was posting up a little bit, or at least facing up, or, kind of catching the ball and being able to, make plays. He wasn't just standing out on the arc waiting for Luka to kick it out to him. Like, he was handling the ball and he was a threat to get his own shot, either facing up or posting up. And since getting to Dallas, I really haven't seen that at all. I'd like to see him around the basket more. I agree with him. I'd like to see him getting touches. He pulled up an interesting stat during the playoffs. I couldn't, give you reference offhand, but I think Luka Doncic is averaging like well over 10 points a game, like per first quarter per game, like in the series. So like in first quarters, he was averaging like 10 or 11 points, but then that dropped off significantly as the game went on. And in the fourth quarter, he was actually really struggling to score the ball because he's so damn tired making all these plays and, being the guy to walk the ball up the floor every single time, drive and kick, make every passing or scoring play for his team. And some might call that unselfish, but I think the next stage of Luka's game, since I actually thought it would be his defense, he's got to work on that free throw shooting too, but his defense was actually really good in the playoffs. I think the next step he can take in his game, and he's young, he's got plenty of time, but I think the next step he can take is to work on trusting his teammates in a different way. There's different ways to trust your teammates in terms of, kicking it out and saying, hey, I trust you to make that shot. I want to see him trust his teammates to make plays where he's the guy standing in the corner on the 3-point line waiting for the ball, because those plays off add up in the playoffs. If they can learn to score without Luka touching the ball for some possessions, I think that's going to be huge for them. And I think it's going to allow him to take them home, because we've already seen like the guy can make clutch shots. He's clutch. It's not a matter of like mental fortitude. He has no fear in late games. I honestly think he's tired. He's super tired because he's doing too much. And I'd love to see them either bring in another playmaker who can, make plays down the stretch or throughout the game so that he has the energy down the stretch. Or I just want to see them simply throw the ball into Porzingis more and let him play in the post and get a better rhythm. Because, yeah, some of these games, Porzingis looks terrible, I'll admit. And that's, not Luka's fault. He's executing the game plan flawlessly. But I think the game plan just needs to change. I don't think it's doing Porzingis any favors for him to just be standing there shooting threes. And I'd like to see more movement in their offense and more ways to score without the ball coming from Luka.
So then again, they like need help then. They need to help him in other ways, getting like a post up guy. Like, okay, so they have enough like shooters, but just like you said, if the shooters aren't hitting their shots, then it's all on Luka.
I agree. And I think, but
so you
in
gotta
go
be
ahead,
able to
sorry.
do something else, just like you said, like,
Yeah.
Then being able to score without him is like that's like huge.
I think they
So
can. That's the thing. I think they have the personnel to do it. Tim Hardaway Jr. looked really good. Luka only had like one bad game in the series, and Tim Hardaway Jr. looked great. For some reason, I think Hardaway Jr.'s had done a good job of like, you can give that guy the ball and he'll score at will. He was doing it in New York with Porzingis before that trade. I'd like to see Porzingis getting the ball in the post a little more. That doesn't seem to be part of Carlisle's offense. I think Jalen Brunson's a guy who can get his own shot. And I'm watching the Sixers Hawks now, a guy that's playing for the Sixers and played for Dallas last year, Seth Curry. I think losing him maybe hurt that team a little more than people expect. They traded him for Josh Richardson, who is a bit of a flop and not nearly as good of a shot creator off the dribble that Seth Curry was. So look for them to maybe try and fill in the gap and get a guy like that again. But other than that, I don't know that they need to go blowing the thing up and making a huge move to bring in like another playmaker. I think it's a matter of just getting the ball out of Luka's hand and adjusting. I think this team can score without him too, and he doesn't need to to bring the ball up and make plays every single play, in my opinion.
So if you think their roster, according to you, it seems like you believe their roster is good enough to like
I think
make
it's like
it.
85% there. Yeah.
So
That's just going to
then,
be a matter of getting older and more experienced. But yeah.
so then, to me, everything you've said, it sounds like it's more of a coaching problem and coaching issue. The coach doesn't want to do the post up. He doesn't want to do these things. So
Possibly.
then, should you not be thinking about firing the coach and getting someone that can make these adjustments to
It's a
take
good
some pressure
question.
off like Luka? Because if you're
It's a
saying
great
they have
point.
the players and things are there, they just need to tweak a couple things. And if that coach isn't making those like changes and is not doing those things, then I feel like then that's time to switch coaches then instead of players.
I think that's the funny thing, and why I think it's a matter of Rick Carlisle just seeing that and admitting that it's they've tried this style of play 2 years now against the same team. They fared slightly better this year than last, but that it's time to kind of adjust and go back to that. If it were any other coach, I'd say yeah, fire him. He's not capable of that. But what's interesting is that Rick Carlisle is the coach that brought the Mavericks their only championship, and the guy that won Finals MVP on that team and that they played through the post,
Yeah.
Dirk Nowitzki, pretty much the same build and style of play as Porzingis. So it's kind of a head scratcher. I understand wanting to use Luka, and that's the way he plays more comfortably. But I'd like to see a percentage of the offense more oriented towards Porzingis in the post. And it's just funny to me that a team with Carlisle at the helm that had Dirk Nowitzki, arguably the prototype for what Porzingis is in the NBA and what a lot of guys have kind of followed in Dirk's footsteps to be, is the guy who's completely thrown that style of play out the window, which is really weird to me. So, what I'd honestly love to see, bring Dirk in as some kind of a trainer or consultant and work with Porzingis and kind of learn to implement a balance between those two styles of play. Because, I think just drive and kick 3-pointers the whole game, you're going to lose some games purely on off shooting. And on nights where you're having an off shooting night, I'd like to see them have another way to win games on the offensive end.
All right. That's cool. So since we are talking about playoffs and all that stuff, I also want to talk about my Milwaukee Bucks totally choking after saying that they're going to go all the way. Game 1, a lot closer. I was like, okay, they could like come back from this. But last night, like, dude, are you kidding me, Milwaukee? Like,
yeah,
you need to get your act together. You need to figure it out. All I've read is that he's what is it? They forced him to shoot threes and he couldn't make threes. And because he couldn't shoot threes, Milwaukee's entire offense apparently like shuts down. That cannot happen in the playoffs.
I mean, I agree. And I think it's kind of funny. We were just talking about the Mavericks and how they got, slightly better, but still didn't get over the hump playing the same team they played last year in the bubble. The Bucks played the same team they played in the last bubble. I lost in thinking that Miami would make that a series. And it genuinely looked like the Bucks had made a step forward, that this Drew Holiday addition had made them a changed team, and that they went from losing 4-1 to the Heat to comfortably sweeping them and pretty much beating their ass. And then you kind of get to this Brooklyn series, and although Brooklyn has a much better team, you look at the way they play small ball and they don't protect the interior as well as they probably could. And you watch a game like yesterday and see Giannis only take 8 shots in the first half against a team that's like, playing Bruce Brown at center and shit sometimes. Like, it's just a total head scratcher. You see Chris Middleton have an off shooting night, a guy that I just don't believe in, and I think is one of the most overrated players in the league. And then for them to just allow themselves to be beaten down by that, I think sadly it's a sign of two things. One, we're going to have yet another cakewalk, finals where a super team kind of cruises and it makes the playoffs unwatchable and not fun. You're seeing it in the body language of like TNT announcers. One of my friends brought up, I didn't actually see the clip, that they weren't excited at all to, and we're kind of making jokes about, Suns Nuggets. There just tends to be this general feeling that, the Nets are going to run away with this thing. The important thing to note is that they're up 2-0, and James Harden, I think, played maybe a minute in game 1 and hasn't played since. So they're not even at full strength, and they're absolutely rolling arguably one of the 3 best teams in the league right now, and they're totally rolling them. So it says two things to me. One, Brooklyn's going to cruise. They're going to win this championship this year. I don't think anyone will take them to more than 6 games, if that. And the second thing I think it shows is that the Bucks have to make some serious changes. Like you said, Giannis being afraid to attack the basket because of his poor free throw shooting, settling for 3-pointers, and then Chris Middleton just not being a reliable second option. It's not enough. Like, adding Drew Holiday helps. They got better, certainly. They made it around further, but this team's supposed to be going to the East Finals. This team's supposed to be going to the NBA Finals, and they can't seem to get it together. And I think the biggest guy you can point to that needs to be better is one, Giannis. He's got to work on that jump shot and stuff. And in the regular season, he was willing to take that shot. And I think in the playoffs, a little too willing to take that shot, not being aggressive enough. But I think the guy that really needs to go is Chris Middleton. This guy's not a reliable number 2 option. I think, honestly, in my opinion, this might be a hot take, but I think he's the most overrated player in the NBA. I've been saying that for a few years. Anyway, wow. Surprise guest.
Adam,
talk about next man up. We're mid podcast and Adam's hopping in with some kind of animal. What is this, Adam? Is this a new dog?
No, this is my puppy.
Yeah. I thought maybe that's where you were. Adam said he was going to miss the podcast. If he was picking up a new dog, I'd be like, that's a totally valid.
Cannot stay long. But I just wanted to pop on and tell you, Rich, you're an idiot for picking the Bucks. They're going to this round. And I told you all.
Look at his incredible timing, man.
And I told you all
what segment we're in.
I told you all about the Joker winning MVP. I called that like 6 months ago. So
good shit, man.
Yeah. So how's the
That's all going? That really needs to be said. You just gonna drop the mic and peace out?
Yeah, pretty much.
Quite a dominant entry.
Rip on me, leave, but
I mean, well, Rich is gonna have the last laugh, man. He's got a whole keg.
I got a whole keg here.
Hopefully, he'll bust it out donate it to the good cause of the Deer Olympics. But I
mean, we will. Yeah,
we'll see.
It'll definitely be. And then the only other thing I have time to add is, can you believe those fucking Montreal Canadiens now sweeping the Jets after they barely
what's going on? Unbelievable.
Like, you're getting hot at the right time, dude.
It's all it takes apparently, but
that happens in baseball all the time too. Like, the season's so long, you get hot at the right time. Like, man, like hockey and baseball are the 2 sports I always feel all the time that the best team doesn't always win the Cup or the World Series because some random team is just on fire for the playoffs.
Well, by the same token, if you're really the best, you got to be ready to play when it matters. Like, if you're not ready to hit that gear when you need to, that doesn't make you the best. Like, in my opinion, you see that in sports like March Madness, NHL, NFL, even sometimes. If you're not ready to when it matters and you're not locked in, it doesn't matter if you go undefeated in the regular season. Like, those games don't matter as much as the playoff games. Those are the games you have to go into undefeated in. So, like, I don't know. I think it's crazy Montreal's doing so well, but that does make you a great team. If you're ready to play when it matters, I'll take a team that's ready to play when it matters over a team that's, going to tear it up in the regular season.
I think it matters even more actually for football because you only have one game. You can't blow a game and come back. You're
not a good team if you don't have the mental fortitude to be ready in those situations.
That's why the Giants got to so many Super Bowls as like a shitty wild card, and they got hot at the right moment and ended up in Super Bowls.
Freaking believable.
But some of that's just like Eli Manning's composure and stuff, and like.
Don't even give me Eli Manning composure. Just lofting.
He was ready to roll, bro. He went toe to toe with Brady twice. And he won
catching
twice.
magical freaking balls. You gotta be kidding me.
Nah, I don't know, man. You go toe to toe with Tom Brady and beat him twice. Isn't he 2-0 against Brady in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, Eli Manning. Those freaking balls were. It's so lucky, dude. He's getting like crushed. He's tossing balls up there to the sidelines. Receivers are making unbelievable freaking catches.
Maybe he made a deal with the devil.
Dude, that's more the receivers than Eli Manning. Eli Manning is a good quarterback. I'm going to give him that. But
Eli Manning made a deal with the devil.
Did you see the video of Archie Jr.
Unreal.
Just throwing like bullet touchdowns, and then Eli like tweeted like, "I taught him that."
I think Eli must have made a deal with the devil to like get his brother Peyton's talent for like just the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean,
then
but
just
I'll
be
playoff
like
run.
That's all
mediocre
anyone
as shit for the
remembers.
rest of his career,
Like,
and throw a bunch of picks and fumble it a bunch
you
of
can't
times.
put
But
statistics on your finger and flex them at dinner. Like, no one's doing that. No one's printing out their, yards for the year 2007 and wrapping it around. Like, no one cares about that shit. Like, it's the rings, man. That's what I
Right.
want, at least. Like, I'll take that career over like the Dan Marino career any day.
All right, fellas. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to hop on
Hey,
and give
man,
my
I'm
quick
glad you did.
thoughts.
That was
Yeah.
exciting. I
My
can't wait till you
2-minute
edit
drill.
this and see your
Yeah.
Yeah,
Quick takes,
just
quick
pop
takes.
on. But enjoy the night, guys.
Yeah.
All right, man.
All right.
Good to see
Later.
you.
See ya.
Pleasant surprise. See you around.
Peace. Yeah. Also, I was just about to say though too, that was kind of it for.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I
he
was
popped
just
in
saying,
with like
popped in right
perfect
at the
timing. I don't
end,
know why he
so-
left, but I'm flattered that he's gonna let us close it down.
Yeah, no
'Cause
kidding.
we were about
So,
done. We were talking Bucks. I don't even
Yep.
really remember where we left
That
off.
was it.
Moving on from Chris Middleton, I guess. Yeah, that's the only
Yeah.
thing I have to say. That like I think the Bucks need to make a trade that's not so much additive. I think adding Drew Holiday was more of an additive trade. They didn't really break up any of their core. But I think it's time to look at maybe moving Chris Middleton first and foremost. And secondly, maybe like as good as he's been still, maybe a guy like Brook Lopez is also trade bait and just bringing a true superstar in.
Here's a hot
Drew Holiday
take.
plus Chris Middleton's not adding up to a second superstar.
Here's a hot take right now. What about Damian Lillard? There's been
love
lots
that.
of rumors about him leaving.
I love that.
Like
I don't think
going to Milwaukee.
I don't think Portland will do it, but that would be a perfect combo.
Like him and Giannis, like that could be a pretty
and then Drew Holiday at
there.
shooting guard, able to kind of guard the point guards that maybe Damian Lillard isn't super adept at guarding. I think he's a good defender, but not a great one. But how good would Damian Lillard be if you didn't even have to guard the other team's best guard and Drew Holiday was guarding him, and then you give him the ball late in the game, and you saw what he was doing to Denver, just drilling shots in that. I think it was Game 5. Ended up losing, but because a guy like CJ McCollum, who I think's maybe the second most overrated player in the NBA, kind of
can't make shots when they need it.
Yeah, I think that's a pairing of two guys who have not been able to find their kindred spirit, co-star, so to speak, and they could be each other's co-stars, and I think they'd be a perfect complement. I always talk about that I think Damian needs to move on from McCollum, because McCollum is a great player, but he doesn't do anything better than Damian does. Like, he does all the same things to just a slightly lesser extent. He can make threes, he can make plays. He's a little bit of a liability on defense. He's got a great handle. He's just a mini Damian Lillard, which I don't think makes for a good duo. But when you look at what Giannis struggles with and what Damian Lillard struggles with, they cover each other's flaws the way like a Shaq and Kobe do. I don't think it would be a duo quite to that extent, but I think they cover each other's flaws and they complement each other perfectly. Damian Lillard is a clutch player who can shoot free throws, make shots down the stretch, isn't a guy you have to worry about getting fouled and sent to the line like Giannis. And then you look at someone like Giannis, he's a great defender, and Damian Lillard is not a guy known as like an elite defender. You got a defensive player of the year on your team if you're able to get over to Milwaukee. So I like that trade a lot, Rich. I don't know that it'll happen because I think Damian Lillard is so loyal to Portland. I think they'll trade CJ McCollum before they'll trade Dame. But if I'm the Bucks, I'm offering a lot of players for Damian because he's dealing with the same thing that Giannis is dealing with in the opposite conference. And I just think they can relate on so many levels and how they've struggled in their careers. And I think they can complement each other perfectly. I think if you're Milwaukee, there's no reason not to try getting Damian Lillard. He's the perfect complement to.
Well, I mean, just like with the playoffs, just like you're saying, like with the Brooklyn Nets, like you need a big 3 or a big 2. Without a big 2 or big 3, you're not going anywhere. And that's being proven right now with Milwaukee. Like, you got the 1, but you don't have a number 2 or number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need that extra, like, actual superstar to come in and, like, relieve some of that pressure off, like, Giannis.
Yeah, and it's a shame, I'm definitely not a fan of the super teams. I love to see that Milwaukee has built that team the right way. They picked Giannis like 13th overall. They picked Middleton, I think, late first round, maybe even second round. They made a nice trade for Drew Holiday. I think they made a trade to bring in Brook Lopez. So they haven't, just kind of put on their recruiting hat and just, been douchebags and sat on a beach somewhere and just tried to wow free agents. They've built that team in like a blue collar, fun, organic way, similar to the Warriors. But I just don't think they built it quite as well, as the Warriors did. I don't think they got it quite perfect building that way. And I think they got to make one more big splash trade. I think right now they've got the assets to do it. And I hope they can win some games against the Nets because it'll make those guys more valuable. But even if I don't see them getting by the Nets, even if they are able to come back and tie this series, and I think if I'm the GM, I'm already thinking, like, how can I get a guy like Damian Lillard, to your point? Because I just think that's a perfect pairing.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to throw out there because there's lots of rumors
about
that
great idea.
And stuff, and I feel like I don't know. Like I said, I don't watch a whole lot of basketball, but I just think that
it's common sense. Yeah, you're right.
Pairing would
you're
actually
100% right.
That
I agree.
pairing would be good, like for sure.
It would be great. It wouldn't even just be good. It would be truly great, man. Like they do everything that the other guy needs. Like they're both superstar players that maybe have one and a half, flaws. And, you look at what they're not good at and the other guy does it at an elite, like top 5 in the league level, So, you look at Giannis, he can't shoot from behind the arc. Other than Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, Damian Lillard's the best shooter in the league, in my opinion. He's got some of the best range in the league. He's going to pull these defenses out so far, create so much space for Giannis to slash to the basket. There definitely won't be any centers camping the free throw line, and there won't be teams able to play zone against a guy like Damian Lillard because he's just going to pull up from half court and make it. So I just think that opens the floor for Giannis so much. And then you look at, Damian Lillard, maybe his biggest flaw is that, he's not an excellent defender. You see him scoring at will, but, his team wasn't able to stop Denver. And some of that starts with the dribble penetration he's able to allow. But, if someone gets the step on Damian Lillard, they're not getting to the rim because you got Giannis and Brook Lopez down there who are two of the best shot blockers in the league. So, yeah, I can't see any way that doesn't make the Bucks a better team, even if they've got to part ways with Middleton and another key piece.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of ends the cast here.
I agree, man. You always love to see a podcast where you debate sports end in just a complete agreement. So
also with that, you hear that, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, go fucking do something.
Well, with that, I'll let you guys go. Peace out. This has been fun. Next man up. We'll see Adam next time for a little longer, but good seeing you all.
Peace.